speaker bio. Roberto, I met Roberto maybe 15 years ago. He was a distinguished lecturer. He talked about e-commerce at that moment, and he was founder of the smart cities, and he did a successful task by developing the smart cities concept and initiative during the Future Directions Committee. And well, we appreciate very much his ideas. I'm a big fan of Roberto. So today's talk will be about the inevitability of the metaverse. So please read the abstract. We still have a few minutes before we start with the Roberto presentation. But pay attention on this metaverse because it's pervasive. It's everywhere. Everyone is talking about this, and I'm eager to hear Roberto's vision of metaverse. So I will stop sharing and give the presentation role to Roberto if I find it here. Roberto, floor is yours.
Gracias, Gustavo. Thank you. I hope you can see my screen.
Yes.
I go full screen, okay? Okay, so well, thanks a lot for inviting me, and I'm really glad I listened to the presentation. He's saying that I already listened to his presentation several times, which is true, but every time there's something new to learn from him. So thanks a lot, Diane, for your introduction. And I'm going over probably from what you said, talking a little bit about future technologies and metaverse. Now, what I'm planning to do actually is start talking about metaverse, then I'll talk about technology, and then I'll go back to metaverse. So this is basically the idea that I have about this presentation. Well, first of all, the more people you're talking to, the more definition of metaverse you're getting. There are so many definitions of metaverse out there. And part of the reason is because people are looking at metaverse from different standpoints. Now, consider the consumers. Well, consumers, we are consumers, okay? So we are living in a physical space. We're playing every day with cheese and sandwiches and this kind of thing. And sometimes we want to play some games, and we want to play these games in an imaginary world. And therefore, we're moving to the digital space. So from a consumer perspective, actually, looking at the metaverse is seeing I'm living in a physical space. I want to go into a digital space and do something like jumping from one skyscraper to another one. I don't really care whether this metaverse, whether this space I'm going to live is a credible one or not. Okay, so it's impossible for me to jump from one house to another one. But in the metaverse, in gaming, I can do that. There's no problem. So this is the consumer perspective. So you see this diagram there. Consumers are going from the physical space and look at the metaverse as an opportunity for going into a digital space. However, the industry has got the opposite perspective. Because what industry is doing, they started to work with bits a long time ago now. They started to use CAD, computer-aided design, and CAD, computer-aided manufacturing, where basically they are working in the digital space. And actually all this effort that is going on in several parts of the world of digital transforming your company means exactly that. You want to do things in the digital space. But then by the end of the day, you've got to deliver products. So for them, the metaverse is a place where they are building something, but at a certain point, they need to go back to the physical space because they are selling something in the physical space. So you see, it's a completely different point of view, consumer and an industry. And from the consumer perspective, you are aiming to create a virtual experience. Okay, as I said, it might be a fantastic one. It might be pretty different and even unbelievable one in terms of physics. Okay, but it doesn't matter. You are just imagining to live in this kind of space. You're flying around and so on. But you're also, in a way, looking at this digital space to enhance your physical experience, which is what we're doing basically every day by our cell phone. How many times did you use your cell phone to to get information from the cyberspace about an actor that you're seeing on television and see how old is he? Well, let me just check, okay? And you're expanding your storage capacity, your knowledge by accessing the cyberspace. So you're enhancing the physical experience. The industry, on the other hand, they are using the virtual to create physical, as I mentioned. But they are also interested more and more into getting feedback from the physical, from the products that their users are using, and getting data and reporting this data back into this virtual space where they can perform simulation, where can ask a question like, what if this going on, and so on and so on. So these are basically two different perspectives. Now, if we're looking at the market of these, the expected market for the metaverse, you see that the forecast is basically the same in terms of growth. Both the consumer metaverse and industrial metaverse are growing, but the industrial metaverse already today is double the market value of the consumer metaverse, and by the end of this decade, it will still be double in terms of revenue generated. So it's going to be over $100 billion expected, whilst the consumer metaverse is about $50 billion. Now, I'm only mentioning the consumer metaverse and the industrial metaverse. Actually, there's also the enterprise metaverse, which is basically in between the two. Okay, enterprise are maybe using the metaverse to automate some bureaucracy, doing a conference call in the metaverse, storing data in the metaverse, and so on. But basically, the focus on these two edges: the consumer on one side, the industry on the other side. Actually, it's already existing, the industrial metaverse and also the consumer metaverse. And here you see the metaverse market map with many companies that are having a role, and they are getting revenues out of metaverse. So you see from the experience side, you see from the Nintendo to the EA and so on, many companies selling games. Then you've got the area of the discovery with Meta, Facebook, and Google Play, and all this kind of thing. The creator economy, those are creating content, and then you see the big names like Microsoft play in that area. Then you've got spatial computing, decentralization, human interface, and so on. So you see, it's already a well-structured market, and many companies are actually making money out of that. But what I would like to do in the next of my presentation is actually to focus on the industrial metaverse, because it's the one that is more concrete in a sense, is going to expand more in terms of market. But more than that, is the one that I think is going to lead the other metaverse, because it's something that is being created for the industrial metaverse, because there's a revenue to be gained right now, right away, is going to fall out into the consumer metaverse. Think about the devices, okay, like glasses, augmented reality glasses, virtual reality glasses, something like that. Yes, there are plenty of this kind of thing for the consumer market, even though they are a little bit expensive. But actually, evolution is taking place in terms of advances in technology in the industrial metaverse. And the reason is because it's really leading edge technology. It costs a lot of money, and industry can afford to use this kind of thing. But as every time it happens, in 2-3 years, that technology will become cheaper, and therefore it percolates into the consumer. So the industry metaverse, to me at least, is the one that's going to lead the evolution. Now, this goes hand in hand with the industry evolution. And you know very well, we have the industry 1.0 with the mechanical production that basically was benefiting from new harvesting forces of energy, like steam, like then electricity later on in the 20th century. Then we moved into the idea of mass production, the assembly line with the Ford, and all these cars that through mass production became cheaper and cheaper. And then we moved into the automation. Thanks to computers, industry became automated. And now we are basically in the stage of digital manufacturing. where you have all these computers that are helping. And in a way, they are already handling operation, part of operation in a digital space. And the two are going hand in hand with the physical space. So you may say that we are already living in an industry, in certain industry at least, in a certain metaverse space. But we are now heading toward the Industry 5.0, where human and robot cooperation will be the staple of this further step. And when you have a human and robot cooperation, you have things more in terms of human cooperating with robots rather than robots cooperating with humans. In the sense that today we have robots, and of course they are helping us in doing things, in manufacturing stuff. But the new wave is such that robots are learning from humans. And so by working along with robots, we are also training robots. And this is a significant change in the perspective, where we really are going to have teams of human and robots co-working together. And in order to do that, you need to move to the metaverse. So this is basically the outline. And what I can imagine is the fact that today we already have, I already said that some metaverse island. They are independent one from the other and so on. But there's work going on like the MPI initiative that is trying to connect together these various metaverse to generate an interconnected metaverse. And what we are aiming at in the second part of this decade is to have an intelligent, unified metaverse, whereas people and companies will keep building their own little space, their own little metaverse. But through this integration, that will create a growth in the general metaverse. So this is the kind of evolution that I can imagine. Now, what are the characteristics of this metaverse? Well, first of all, let me say that we are looking to metaverse through a new initiative at the FTC, initiative on metaverse. And our view of the metaverse is that it's not the digital space, it's not Second Life, okay, but it's actually the space we are living. And the space we're living is a mixture of bits and atoms. And these two things are going together. So on the one side, you've got the physical world, the earth. On the other side, you have this digital world. And the characteristics of these two components that forms a new one is the fact that they are synchronous with one another, basically, that there's a persistence in the digital world, meaning that whatever you're doing, it leaves a trail, okay? It changes. So you are being part of the metaverse is changing the metaverse. It's decentralized, as I mentioned before, because there are going to be several metaverse. And through interoperability, these create a single unified metaverse. This metaverse should be accessible. There's no point in having a metaverse if you cannot access it. And it should be immersive. Now, this is crucial, and I'm going to close my talk with discussing this part. But let me say that we strongly believe that there's no such a thing as a metaverse without humans. So whilst there can be a digital space without humans, and we've got plenty of the digital space without humans, a metaverse is characterized by the fact that there are humans in it, and humans are feeling part of the metaverse. So immersivity is really, really important. Now, if you are in this kind of space where the two things are actually overlapping one with the other, and you're living also in terms of business, and therefore you need to have a flanking economic platform. It shouldn't be something that it doesn't generate value that can be harvested and so on. So the flanking economic platform is actually an essential part of this kind of thing. So with that, let me move to the second part, which is the technology. And we have plenty of technology today. And you remember William Gibson saying that the future is already here, just unevenly distributed. Actually, this sentence is partly true, but it's not completely true. Why? Well, it's true that in some labs we have something that is very, very advanced, that is a sign of what we will get in the future. But it's not exactly what we will get in the future. You remember the Palm from Apple? It was an idea, a prototype, I would say, seeing what we have today of what could be done with an electronic machine. You can take note, you can use it for translating things and so on. But it was a very rough idea of what we have today. So in a way, it was an anticipation, but in another way, it's not what we have today. Okay, it's different. And the same thing goes to technologies. We can see advanced technologies everywhere in some laboratories and something like that, and we can say, wow, that's amazing. We're going to have that in 10 years' time, maybe. But actually, in 10 years' time, what we're going to get is not exactly that. It's something different. So it's not just that becoming cheaper, more affordable, okay? Is the fact that by evolving, it will be transformed into something that we cannot even imagine today. So this goes the same for the metaverse. You remember Second Life, okay? And somebody's saying that metaverse is just Second Life on steroids, okay? Well, actually, it's something different, okay? Second Life was an idea of an opportunity to live virtually in a digital space. And Second Life is still here, okay? There are still people using Second Life. But what we are thinking about as metaverse today is quite different, even though it's inheriting some characteristic from Second Life, but it's different. So having considered these characteristics that we are expecting the metaverse to have, let's take a look at what kind of technology families we really need. In this diagram here, you see we have got the bubble of the metaverse in the center, and then you've got all these various technologies. In black, I represented the technologies that in a way are the one that either today or tomorrow will be an integral component of the metaverse. In blue, I represented the ones that are in a way beneath. We are not going to see them in the sense that we will take them for granted, okay, are part of the fabric of the metaverse. We absolutely need this kind of technology, but we won't realize that we're actually using this kind of technology. So on the left-hand side, we have, of course, the X reality, which means augmented reality, mixed reality, virtual reality, and this comprises both software and hardware, okay? So we are going to have these wonderful glasses for doing that. Maybe in the future we're going to have contact lenses, electronic contact lenses that will allow that. And maybe farther down in the future we might have BCI, brain-computer interfaces. A fundamental component of the metaverse is the digital twin. And this is particularly important in the industrial metaverse because it's representing various pieces that are needed by the industry, but it's also important in the consumer metaverse because digital twins are the ones that are actually stepping inside the metaverse and be our avatar completely and fully synchronized with us. Then, of course, IoT are essential because remember we said that we need this kind of synchronization between the digital and the physical space. And we need to understand what's going on in the physical space, and we also need to influence the physical space. And so IoT as sensor and actuators are very, very important. Now, in terms of beneath the infrastructure part, well, artificial intelligence, well, I realize the fact that for many of us, artificial intelligence seems to be a service, like a service, so a function. But the thinking that we had at the FTC and the share by many people is the fact that actually artificial intelligence is a sort of fabric that is you're going to take for granted. You're going to take for granted that the environment is responsive, that understands what you want, that reacts in a way that is intelligent, is smart, the same way that you're expecting in the future to see your building, your house be smart and reacting to yourself. And you're taking for granted. Like when you go to a toll booth with your car. I don't know how is it in other countries, but in Italy, you go to the toll booth and you hear a voice saying, "Have a nice trip," okay? And that is signal that they accepted your virtual payment, no touch payment. And sometimes I reply, thanks, have a good day. Okay, so you're feeling like this voice is part of your environment. You're no longer feeling that it is a separate thing. Blockchain, again, is something that will be used, take for granted, because you need to have this concatenation of what is happening in the metaverse. Remember this feature of the memory and persistence, and this is also to be provided by blockchain in a way, and also the value of individual objects, the identity and so on, the uniqueness of objects can be guaranteed by NFT. Then, of course, if you have to feel to be immersed into the metaverse, you have to see something that looks like the real thing. Okay, even though you're jumping from one building to the other, you want to see the building that looks like a real building and the road down there that looks like a real road. So you alter the physics of your jump, but you still want to feel that it is credible, the environment. So 3D image management is essential. And by the way, this also requires artificial intelligence, and it also requires access to IoT and all this kind of thing. And of course, you need to have communication. Now, today we have 4G, which is pretty good. For what we need to do in most situations, it's fine. We already have several areas of 5G, particularly within industry. We have private 5G, not everywhere, but in many industries you got this kind of thing. If you buy stuff from Siemens and you are in a country that is allowing the use of a private spectrum for 5G, then they will be delivering you the robots and also the communication infrastructure among these robots using 5G. So exploiting the low latency in the local area and all this kind of thing. And of course, in the near future, let's say by the end of this decade, we are going to have 6G. That's a sure thing. Every 10 years, we change the number and we keep the G. Okay, so we're going to have 6G. And the nice thing about 6G is that it is basically a network that will be created by individual devices. So the more devices you have, the more powerful the network, and the devices will be able to orchestrate among themselves using artificial intelligence how to interact, how to communicate. So this is the kind of evolution that we're seeing in terms of technology. Now, taking a deeper view on some of these, I mentioned the fact that digital twins are a crucial part, particularly in the industrial metaverse. You see in the image some estimates on what kind of advantage they can bring to industry. A 60% reduction time in deploying new functionality of smart industry, 10% increase in commercial efficiency, 50% reduction in capital and operating expenses. Now, whenever you're talking about reducing cost, you will see that the people from industry will listen, okay, because this is a sure thing and they want to adopt this kind of thing. And they have been adopting digital twins from a long time, even before calling them digital twin. As I mentioned, we have been using in industry computer-aided design for a long time. And computer-aided design is basically creating a digital model. So they have become so widespread, they are now self-fueling their own evolution. And you have now platforms that are supporting this kind of thing. And actually, you cannot operate a robot unless you have a digital twin. If you're buying robots from Siemens or from General Electric, and you have on both these companies that are providing platforms like MindSphere, supporting this kind of thing. And this is also pushing industry to extend the use of digital twin to other parts of the company. So it's a self-fueling expansion of that. And of course, it's part of the digital transformation. And in Italy, we have a strong incentive for company to digital transform their operation. They get subsidy for that, fiscal deduction, and all this kind of thing. And so there's a lot of adoption because of these economic convenience. They are also the starting point to set up an industrial metaverse. So this is very important. If you have an industry and you're already using and playing and operating with digital twin, then there's only a little bit step further that you need to take using the digital twin to create your immersive space. And this little step is called executable digital twins. This is a word that is coming out from Siemens. That's basically saying that, well, we have in the industry, as you see in the diagram, digital twin that we're using for design, for simulation, all this kind of thing, okay? They are data driven, they get data from data spaces like a Gaia X in automotive, in healthcare, and so on. But then you want to do the next step into the metaverse, creating your industrial metaverse. Well, what you need to do is take this digital twin that you have and make them visible. Today, digital twins are completely invisible, okay? You are stepping on a plane, you are going from LA to London. Well, that 777 that you're flying with has got plenty of digital twins, but you don't see them, okay? You look out of the window, you see the engine, and that's it. But actually, that engine has a mirror into the digital twin. Now, what the industry needs to go into enter into the metaverse is to make this digital twin visible. So becoming from hidden, they should become visual hooks so that a person, an engineer, can wear goggles and can start seeing the digital twin, the virtual engine, how it works and all this kind of thing. And these digital twins are operating at stage 4 and 5. We don't have time to go into very deep discussion about this, but let's say that at these stages, the digital twin becomes smart, intelligent, a little bit autonomous, okay? And if you are a consumer, or even if you are an engineer and you want to play with this digital twin, that now you are seeing them using the goggles, well, you can use your digital proxy, your own personal digital twin, to interact with this kind of thing. And of course, you're using your hands in space to do operation on this virtual model, but actually your hands movement is captured and implemented through your personal digital twin so that it interacts with the digital twin of that particular engine and so on. Blockchain. We need to have a concatenation, a persistence in the metaverse. This is absolutely essential in the industrial metaverse. You need to have traceability. You need you need to have accountability and so on, all this kind of thing. Now, blockchain and basically all distributed ledger technologies are offering exactly that. So you see, the blockchain is at the core of the metaverse in the sense that it's providing the fabric, and on that you can provide security, you can provide traceability, you can state control what's going on, okay, and who did that, what, and so on. You can have decentralized, completely decentralized operation because the blockchain is weaving all this kind of thing together, okay? And you know that what is done is done, has been done, is done, okay? So immutability. You don't want to have something that, oh, yeah, it happened, but now it's vanished, okay? And we no longer know what's going to happen. Now, this is also essential for ensuring the data acquisition follows certain procedure, that there's data interoperability that is supporting payment, that is supporting identification, value of individual objects, and so on. So blockchain are part of this layer. I mentioned before that the importance of the immersivity. How can I create a space that is credible? Okay, I can use these technologies. This is a really a forest, okay, a set of technologies for generating images starting from model, for using images starting from the digital model of that image, so that you have a digital model of an engine. If you move your hand, okay, unless you are clearly specifying that you want to have a most powerful hand that can go inside the engine, okay, you should feel that when you put your hand on the engine, it stops, okay? So you need to have this boundary concept that is very difficult to create in a 3D digital space, but it's essential if you want to have a credible size. Okay, so you don't go through walls. You may go through walls if you're playing a game, that's fine, okay, it's part of the fantasy of the game, but if you are using the metaverse in an industrial context, it has to comply with physical constraint to be useful. So this requires a lot, okay, of work at the level of 3D rendering. And it requires these objects to become intelligent, to know about themselves, okay, what are their characteristics. And as I mentioned, it needs to be as real as it needs to be, okay? Not over real, because then maybe you cannot use it. You want to go to the digital space to do something that you cannot do in the physical space. So because of that, you can relax some constraint, but in general, this is what you need. Now, as a last technology, let me just mention this BCI. And I like to mention this because today is more a vision than reality. Yes, you see the picture there. Yes, you can use this kind of thing to move object on the screen. So you can say that your thoughts at a certain level can be intercepted. You can interface with a computer or something like that. But that's not what I call a seamless interface, okay? It doesn't provide any sense of immersivity, this kind of thing. Now, if we're looking in the future, it might become technology feasible to have this seamless connection. It might become feasible to have a chip implanted in your brain. Actually, the FDA has just last week given permission to Elon Musk on for his company Neuralink to try implanting chips on human brains. So it may become physical, but I really think it is dystopian to most people. For me, it is. I will never want to have a chip implanted in my brain. Maybe in 100 years' time it will be different, maybe in much shorter time. But then, anyhow, this is my vision. Okay, for me, entering and being immersive, having an immersive sensation in the metaverse, that means to use my senses and not to use direct brain connection. Now, one of the things that you need to do is to understand that there are many metaverses, even in the industrial environment. So in this picture, that is actually, I think, a picture from HPE, Hewlett Packard Enterprise, you see that they are layering the life cycle of a company product into these 5 layers. And you have the orange one that is basically the user level, okay? The consumer, once you are delivering the product. Then you have a control level, you have production level that basically is related to all these robots talking one another. You've got standards there. You see these names, SCADA, MES, PLC, and so on, ERP. These are all standards existing that industry is already using. And they may be using this kind of thing and shifting them into the metaverse. So basically, each of these layers can be a metaverse. And actually, what's happening today is that the industrial metaverse is mostly restricted to one layer. And mostly today is restricted to the control layer on a way where you're also doing something like a design thing. There are very, very little niches about production layer. And these niches are mostly in the pharmaceutical environment, where indeed they are producing and simulating the production of drugs using the metaverse. And then you can have some companies that are developing a metaverse for marketing purposes, for letting their clients feel how that product would look like in their particular context. Okay. Now the connection of all these layers can be achieved if you have interoperability, and this is the work that is being done today by MPI, the organization, and we are cooperating with them. FTC, this Metaverse initiative, is cooperating with MPI. Is part of the standardization effort, also within the standardization OU of the IEEE, and they are looking for interoperability. There's something important that to be considered when we want actually to move to implementation and actually using this kind of thing. That is the need for frames. What is a frame? Well, basically, what you have is that you have a metaverse there, and in this metaverse, you have imagine you're simulating and emulating your floor plan. So you've got robots, you've got your products in digital shape and all this kind of thing, and you are walking among this kind of thing. Now, if that you is a person like me, this is an observer, okay, I can imagine that they might allow me to look at this kind of thing, but they don't want me to mess with this kind of thing. On the other hand, if you are an engineer and you're trying to adjust the robots, how they work and so on, you walk among the robots in the metaverse and you can do something on that. Why can you do such a thing and I cannot do this? Because the frames of the metaverse created for you are different from the frames created for me, so that we can see different things, we can do different things. And even if you are part of the production environment, suppose you are a provider, okay, and you want to work together with the company you're providing your components, well, you are going to have certain kind of visibility, but not the same visibility of the person that is actually part of that company. So again, you will need a frame. Now, the creation of all this frame is going to be very important, and it's already started in the industrial metaverse. In terms of operation, well, it means basically that you need to upkeep this metaverse running, and upkeep the metaverse. Remember what I said in the very beginning, a metaverse only exists if you got people inside the metaverse. And so you need to have people that are in sync with this new culture, okay, of the metaverse. And as they used to say, no one knows on the internet if you are a dog, okay? Well, that's not the case. It shouldn't be the case for an industrial metaverse. It should be very clear that person walking around these robots, the digital robot and so on, what is allowed to do and what is not allowed to do, what the identity of that person is, what the authorization of that person is. So for that, we absolutely need to have each character with a trusted identity and authentication of that identity. And we need to have frames. Here again, I repeated that. In an industrial environment, you absolutely need to have memory. You need to understand who did something, okay? Maybe you don't want to shoot the person, okay, if he did a mistake, but you want to understand what kind of mistake was made by whom to take action, okay, to avoid that the mistakes is played again over and over. So who did it is very, very important in terms of operation. Now, the point is, how can we build the metaverse? Well, the problem is actually not the metaverse, but how to move from the current situation into an operation in the metaverse. So the problem is how to get there. And you see, there are many technologies shown in this diagram, among those that most of these I already spoken about. And you need to understand, first of all, why do you want the metaverse in your company? Then assess what kind of technology you have, what kind of infrastructure you have, what kind of skill and culture you have, and then you can move forward. So you start from looking what you have. The second thing is that basically you should be growing into the metaverse from the digital transformation. That would be the easier step, also because you are going to have solved several problems if you really engage into and execute a digital transformation, also in terms of people, of culture, of business models, and so on. However, you can also decide to just implement a metaverse, maybe for a tiny layer of what you're doing, through talking to your customer for marketing purposes and so on. And so that's another way of implementing a metaverse. Or you can decide that as I am implementing the metaverse, at the same time, I'm trying to transition certain processes by using digital transformation. So these are basically the three options that you have for growing into the metaverse. Then the next step is, okay, let's do it, okay? How can you do it? Well, you need to capitalize on the existing digital twin that you have, and you need to create the X digital twin, the executable digital twin. Basically, this means that you need to have digital twins that you can touch, that you can see, that you can understand with your senses, with your people's senses, okay? And then you need to provide your people with their personal digital twin so that they can interact with the other digital twin. And of course, all these should be coherent. You should visualize this digital twin in a coherent environment where they have a space, okay, where that makes sense. You have some tools that support you to do this kind of thing. Like an example here, I'm mentioning in this image Azure, the set of services provided by Microsoft. They have all this kind of thing supporting from the digital twin for the data spaces, for a 3D rendering of the digital twin, and for interaction with this kind of thing. Okay, well, you need to have this platform supporting this kind of thing. MindSphere is another platform. Azure is a more comprehensive one on one side because it's also providing all the cloud services that you may need. On the other hand, the MindSphere may be a better one because it starts from robots, from the physical robots and going up creating the infrastructure, communication infrastructure, and so on. But anyhow, you need something that is facilitating the management of the various digital entities and of the various processes connecting this kind of thing. One thing that I think is important is to really avoid to shift the current processes to the metaverse. This is the same kind of mistake that many companies are doing when shifting to the digital, using digital transformation to a digital operation. They just move their current processes into the new set. This is wrong, because you're going to increase your costs and you're not going to reap all the benefits or play in the field in the metaverse. So you start from a greenfield design for your processes. This is absolutely essential. Now, let me close by giving you examples, okay, of these. This is the Siemensstadt Square in Berlin. It's already under construction. It's 76 hectares in Berlin, where a dismiss area, a waste area, industrial area in Berlin. They are completely revamping it, creating a residential space, and they have designed this in the metaverse. And this is very important, they are expecting that people living there will be living in that metaverse. So they don't just create a digital model, okay, but they are using this digital model to provide services and to let people live in that metaverse space. So this is a very interesting example. Another one is an example of an industrial metaverse with co-manufacturing. This picture shows what you see in two places. One is in Turin in the advanced manufacturing, cooperative innovative manufacturing, and the other one is the MADE Center in Milan. Both these places are physical and virtual places. That's why they are metaverse. Okay, it's not just a digital space. You have a physical space with robots, with things. Companies are bringing their equipment there, but also companies are keeping some of their equipment in other places, or they are just designing equipment and they are making this equipment available in the digital form. It's all based on digital twins. Okay, so whether you have a physical entity there in the space, or whether it's just a figment of your imagination that will be developed, doesn't matter. It has to have a digital twin. And this industrial metaverse is designed and is being used every day by many companies. So if you're coming to Turin, you're coming to Milan, give me a call. I can guide you through these spaces. And they're being used today for co-design, co-simulation, co-testing. And interestingly, they're also being extensively used for training. Okay, so you can train it. So what will the future be? Well, today we are interacting with our senses, with our environment. Okay, we are seeing the desk, we are seeing the room in our office, we are seeing our homes. We are living in the world. Okay, but I'm pretty sure that you feel you are part of the world. You never say it's me and the world. Okay, you are living in the world. You are part of that. Now, what's happening today is that when you're wearing this kind of goggles, okay, you see this digital space, but it's quite clear that you are not there, okay? You see something, you can do something there, but you are not there. Well, what is the future be? If we're going to really have a metaverse to live in, then we will become part of that. We will feel, perceive that we are part of that environment, okay? As we are part of the data space whenever we are picking up our phone and we are seeking for information without thinking that those information are somewhere else, that information is somewhere else, okay? It's part of your environment. So I think that the big steps that needs to be taken in the future years is actually to move from a figment of our imagination, a digital representation, into something that is really our space. And we are trying to do this kind of thing within the IEEE. We have an initiative in the FDC, as I mentioned. Be part of that, join the technical community, be part of the discussion, contribute to it. And we are trying to develop also courses in this kind of area. The ComSoc, the Communication Society, has just released a course on the communication tools infrastructure for the metaverse. It's important, it's crucial, because there's no metaverse without humans, but in order to have humans that fit in the metaverse, you have to have training, particularly if you are in the area of the industrial metaverse. So with that, I close. Please follow me on the FDC blog. You can connect with me on LinkedIn. You see there the point. You can write me emails. We can set up a call if you want to speak a little bit more about this kind of thing. I'm looking forward to talking to you. Thanks.
Amazing presentation. Contents, timing, ideas, excellent presentation. Congratulations, really, Roberto. You're great person for technology. And it's clear after your presentation that Industry 4.0, it's evolving to 5.0 thanks to the metaverse. And also the building, construction, co-manufacturing are taking huge steps to improve for the that kind of applications. And I just wonder if you can talk just a few seconds, minutes about any application that could be used by remote healthcare. And I'm concerned about the connecting the unconnected people in remote areas. So metaverse maybe will not be quite close to them. So anything to tell about the remote healthcare related to the metaverse, Roberto?
Well, thanks, Gustavo. There are several things going on in the healthcare area. I briefly mentioned the fact that in a way, the drug industry, the pharmaceutical industry, is well advanced in the metaverse in terms of production, okay, design and production of drug, and also simulation. In India, I know that they have some very advanced trials on remote medicine, just because they have these villages that are far away. There has been recently a surgery performed. The surgery was performed in London, so it's not actually an underdeveloped country, in an hospital in London by a surgeon, but that surgeon was not really familiar with this kind of operation. And there was another surgeon in Seattle that was following the operation, and they were using video support through glasses. Okay, so it was a part of being both of them in the same environment. And the surgeon in London was actually using the scalpel, but the one in Seattle was seeing exactly the same thing, and was able to indicate using a laser beam the point that should be cut by the other surgeon and so on. So this is another example of what can be done with technology that are coming right to the point of your question. I feel that by providing an immersive space for healthcare would be really beneficial, in the sense that you can then start and become aware of the situation. Think about the COVID, okay? We moved around, we were scared, we didn't know whether it was risky to go in that area or something or not, and so on. Think about living in a metaverse where you're just moving around. You're moving around in the physical space, of course, but at the same time, you get the feeling and the clear perception that that area may be dangerous, that there might be infected people and so on. So I think the metaverse can really augment our awareness and improve our well-being.
Well, excellent thoughts, and hope to see you soon. And I suggest everybody follows you. You have a nice blog, and then it's quite interesting for everyone to follow you. Please go ahead, Roberto, with your fantastic ideas. Thank you so much.
Gracias, Gustavo.